Okay, people say sometimes at a tournament that the hardest thing to play is this ranked player or that ranked player or this army or that army or something else. But honestly, the hardest thing that I play at tournaments are my friends. And Jim has been so gracious to me and brought my army down and everything. And I roomed with him and his friend Steven. And it was kind of rough having to play him, but we were both at the same battle points. And uh, I think that both of us would have rather played each other than probably anybody else that morning. All right, I pushed really strongly forward this game, and not because I thought my army was superior or anything, just because that having played troops that are similar to mine in games like this, they tend to get into what I call slap fights, which means they don't hurt each other and the melees last forever. So I decided to push hard on the left side with my one unit of blights, some slaves, and all my shooting stuff that was over there. Did manage to take out his Vermintide, um, his Hack Paws, and I think the Doom Wheel, but paid for it when the uh, uh, spear rats charged my blights and uh, killed them with, I think it was an 11 or 12, I can't remember, but it was an outstanding dice roll. And all of a sudden, my guys went poof. Right, this is a scenario where you uh, score points for the units you push to the opponent's side of the table. And to that end, I sent 3 regiments of slaves, a weapon team, and my Crucible monster over to try to push through that gap next to that humongous piece of impassable terrain. Over there, he had his mortar, uh, just a regular old unit of warriors, and his claw shots. And hiding behind the rock, like a sneaky guy is, his assassin was there ready to pounce upon my Crucible monster with his, I think it's a blade of monster slaying or something like that. But he did a pretty significant job on trying to get rid of the Crucible monster. So, like I said, we're trying to push. I'm trying to push across the table. I thought about just kind of stalling out here, but the mortar started raining death on me, and so I decided to keep pushing forward. Here, we're still heavily engaged. This turn, I'm working on the hack paws. Uh, my storm vermin, I'm sorry, my shock troops managed to charge on his blights, and I really thought with the sharpness that I could take them out in one turn. My other blights hit his crucible monster and trying to take him out. I had so many wounds this game. I think I ran out of those little red markers for wounds. I think I ran out of them this game. So we were doing quite a bit of damage to each other because we had similar armies, and so as you can tell, like I say, we are hotly engaged in this game, and his shooting's picking stuff off of me, and we're just kind of going back and forth with each other, trying to gain the advantage. Okay, I'd done a lot of damage over on his left flank, but this was the turn he gained revenge, and I charged his spear rats into my very wounded blights, and I believe he broke them this turn or the next turn, but it was uh, unexpected, let's say, to have lost them, but they were lost. Uh, he charged his doom wheel, I think, into the slaves that were protecting my uh, shock troops, and he bounced. And I don't remember what happened to him. I think maybe something else charged into him and killed him, or something shot him and killed him. But as you can see here, the his regiment of blights has charged into my slaves. My big horde of uh, blights has taken out his crucible monster. Yeah, my blights in the woods have died. I did manage to, I think I charged my slaves into the rear of the doom wheel. Uh, the ones on the hill were wavered, and I'd taken pretty significant damage from the countercharge of the blights, but I was in good position as my other blight unit had turned and was getting ready to charge his blight horde in the flank. Um, Something happened down at the bottom. I think maybe all my shooting got rid of the blight regiment, but my unit down there, my slave unit down there, was wavered. Um, like I said, I was having a hard time remembering what was going on, but like I said, he cleared out my big blight horde on the flank, and that would become, I believe, his scoring unit for the game. Is that unit of spear rats as they eventually cross the table and take up a position to gain him some victory points. Yeah, you can see this was not a good place for me to be. Um, I believe his spearman had charged my uh, slaves in the flank, wiped them out, and was moving forward. The doom wheel thingy, death machine, whatever it's called, had countercharged into my other slaves, uh, destroying them. So now my flank is wide open for my blights. The blights this turn it just absolutely got devastated. I'd taken 17 wounds, and was wavered. Not the blights, I'm sorry, the shock troops. But my retribution was coming since I had my big horde of blights on his flank to be able to do the countercharge here and potentially take him out. But this game is tight. I mean, every dice roll is so important in this game, and eventually it'd have to break one way or the other. All right, this should have been the end of the game right here, but it was not. And the reason why is despite doing, I want to say 30 something points of damage to his blights with my flank charge, uh, I rolled snake eyes. And with that, the counter charge destroyed my blights. He charged his blight lord into the shock troops since they are minus 17 wounds, and then both units break. So that was 6 unit strength for this scenario I needed. Broke all in one turn. I was really in a world of hurt because his unit was still alive. His other unit was across the table line, and I'm over there really down to some units of slaves to try to get the game won. Just a horrendous turn for my version of the Ratkin versus his version of the Ratkin. It was bad. So anyway, I really at this point had thought that I'd lost the game, and like I said, sometimes these games look like that they're going one way, and at the last second they swap the other way. There it is, the aftermath of the melee. My 2 magnificent units were destroyed, and that was a big hurt. And really, anything that was going to sneeze on his troops would kill him the next turn. And the next turn, I moved the weapons team in and shot him up, and finally finished that unit off. But they had done just a ton of damage to my army, and so just well played. Okay, this was the turning point of the game for me. Broke his warrior unit. Pretty sure I broke his assassin the same turn. The one unit of my slaves had destroyed his troop of claw shots on the other side, and so now I had 6, 7 scoring points. The 3 units of slaves and the Crucible monster, I had 7 points of unit strength that went across the line, and put me ahead for at least for the time. So at the end of the game, we were totaling up victory points. This is the entirety of what's left of Jim's army. Pretty much the some characters running around, and those 3 units of slaves was all that was left of mine. So we really just beat each other all to crap. But in the end, I had a higher unit strength. I had a unit strength of 7 to his unit strength of 3, and won the game. But I mean, like I said, we beat the devil out of each other, and neither one of us had much left. So great game with my friend Jim. Just absolutely a brawl between these 2 armies of Ratkin. So now I had one loss, two draws, and one win. And so the next game was really kind of going to determine how the tournament went for me. And to my surprise, I got to play Jason Holiday, and he is a big member of the Old Hammer group, and known him a long time, probably over 15 years for them running the Necromicon down in Orlando back in the old days. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick narration through this. So many of their units, I don't know what they do in the Undead armies, and I'll spend some time when I get back Tennessee actually learning to play against this army. I think the big thing was on my right flank, I made a grand battery of 3 weapons teams. And the goal was just to set behind that hill. And whenever something came by, I was going to hose it. And that's exactly what happened. Also, Jason actually helped me in this game by mentioning that the Crucible monster was level 4. And he had a unit on the other side of that hill with their flank to him. And so I used the Crucible monster to take out that unit. So basically everything on the right side of his line was devastated by shooting and flank charges from, believe it or not, slaves and the Crucible monster. So my big choppy units, most of them didn't fight except for the on the other flank. Okay, over on the left flank, my chaff eventually beat through his chaff, and I moved the blights with the potion of the caterpillar into that rough ground on the left, kind of left center, and really just essentially just dared him to do anything to him. Eventually, late in the game, in order to try to win the game and punch through me, he did charge some his spear skeletons into him, and I repelled the attack and took him off the table. So really, it kind of came down to like I said, I was devastating on his right flank because of the amount of shooting that I had. And on the left flank, just I had a good position because of the piece of difficult terrain with the blights. And blights are all but impossible in this game to get rid of if they have some terrain to hide in. In the middle, my other blight unit and my shock troops, I just had brought them together, and that was just so I could get some unit strength in, because the side with the most unit strength within 12 inches of the middle was going to win the game. I'd let him take the first turn on purpose so that I had a chance late in the game to move forward and move into the area, and that's exactly what happened. I moved forward on the last turn and secured the victory for the Ratkin. I was really happy to get to play some of my friends, and like I said, it's difficult to play your friends. It's probably the most difficult thing. But on the other hand, we had a good time. We laughed and joked with each other the whole game, and that's very relaxing. If you can play that, and you're both, no matter what's going on in the game, you can still get along with each other. With my army, I don't really know if I would change anything now. I've been thinking about it. Maybe what I would do is swap out one unit of slaves, a weapons team, and a claw shot for another horde of something, just for these scenarios where you're having to take counters. And the more unit strength you could put on the table, I think the better off you are, because we didn't do any just kill scenarios. Matter of fact, there were no kill scenarios. They were all grabbing counters or grabbing terrain. So having a high unit strength in your army is very important in this game, even if that way if you lose one horde, you're not in a bad place. So I was really happy with how the event turned out. I can't say enough about Cody Smith and how well they ran the tournament. He was always there if I had a rules question, because I had lots of rules questions. And it wasn't because I thought my opponent was cheating or anything. I just thought that I was just confused on how things worked, and he was very kind and showed me how those worked, and that made me have a better feeling of how the game is played. And one of the things you really learn to play in this game is how tight the margins are when you're trying to win. And so many times a game will change, in one turn, right when you think you've lost it, and all of a sudden, bam, you're right back in it. That's what happened with Jim. He was right back in our game. Same thing with Rob's elves. one good dice roll with his Blizzard Wizard, and he was right back in the game and turned a loss into a draw. So, like I said, you can't ever give up when you're playing. I mean, it's just so uh, the margins are just too tight, especially when there's a lot of really good players playing together. Okay, this is at the award ceremony. Just want to point out there was a lot of people that got awards in this thing, but the just wanted to point out my friends that got awards, the people I've known for years. And Jim Liver's Crucible monster was amazing. I think his wife helped him with it, and Jim was able to take the award for it, and just great monster. Also, Jim finished second in sports, which was also great and shows you what a kind person he is. Another old friend, Paulie, he actually won the Best Sportsman Award, which I'm totally the most jealous of that award. I never even came close to it. Uh, but I was happy to see him win. I was happy for Jim and Polly, and also Tom Keegan, who won the Best Painted Army in the event.